What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to yet another episode of the DayDreamer's podcast. I'm your host, of course, Esteban. If you're brand new here, welcome. Happy to have you join the club here. And of course, if you're a returning listener and now viewer, as we are now officially a video podcast on YouTube, thank you so much for supporting, for tuning in, for even watching clips or little pieces and tidbits of the episodes. I very much appreciate you and will continue to spread the word too. By the way, if you're checking me out on YouTube here and you're watching this video now, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like the video, share with anybody that you know would appreciate it, that could, potentially take something from it, or would just enjoy it and having it even on the background. In any case, I'm very happy to be back with another episode. Lots of cool, fun things to talk about, and of course, lots to look forward to in the coming episodes as well. So again, the kind of the obvious one that I mentioned already is I'm very happy to be, putting this out on video too. Usually I think the schedule now that we're going to go off of, I'm still working out the kinks with the scheduling because I want to be sure, I make enough time to put the video together and be able to post it in time, but also to be able to get the content out as soon as possible. So I think what it's going to look like is Fridays, you should expect the audio version. So again, you can check out any of the previous episodes and any of the future episodes as well. Audio version will be pretty much anywhere you can get your podcast, primarily, of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I do have direct links in my bio on Instagram as well. You can also check it out on the bio here. And then, of course, you'll be able to check it out on YouTube, but that'll be on Saturday. So I'll be releasing the video versions of them on Saturday just to kind of space things out too and give me a little more time to make sure I can get the video out and that I have to edit anything that I need to, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways, I don't have to go on and on about my process. The next thing that I'm very, very excited for is obviously, I know, happy Friday to wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I know this will come out and, I can't go without mentioning that countdown is still there. We're less than 100 days now until Halloween. So I'm very excited about that. Actually, the release of this episode today, I will be, at least the plan is, to go start shopping for any Halloween decorations, see what we can pick up here to put in the apartment, but even put it for the background. I still want to put some stuff in that will make it fun to decorate for the show. So, you're going to start seeing probably little bits and pieces get, brought in here and there. So I'm looking forward to that. And, continuing to hopefully incorporate more of the spooky season movies, go check out some other spooky season things that I haven't. There's quite a few things that I want to go check out, like pop-ups, bars, and just, all kinds of other stuff. TBD if Horror Nights is going to happen this year. I'm really trying to make it happen. It's just so expensive. But, we'll see what happens. We'll see what we make of it. And of course, finally, I can't go without mentioning that next week, finally, a week from today, the release of this episode, we are going to have our very first guest, Daniel Embry, my brother-in-law. I cannot wait to have him on. And of course, this has, again, been a long time coming in anticipation for Spider-Man Brand New Day. So I cannot wait to sit down and talk with him, and we're going to talk about a number of things, not just Spider-Man, but obviously just kind of like what movies and TV shows that we kind of, both have an affinity for, even get a little personal, just talk some motivational stuff, that, I think is going to be just a good conversation. And I love talking to him anyway. So it'll be a good time for sure. No doubt. So looking forward to that. Stay tuned. And, the other thing that, talking about, as I mentioned, Spider-Man, talking about Marvel, my goodness, guys. So let's see, last episode got released last week on Friday, Saturday. And then, I kind of chilling, for the most part. And then little did we know that we were going to be receiving something on Monday. And by we, I mean the world, getting something that was a very nice surprise. The first trailer for Avengers Doomsday came out, which is the next installment of the Avengers franchise. Was a lot to unpack. First things first, I cannot stress enough the excitement that people have, but also the frustration, I think, that people have had about this movie coming out. The marketing has been weird, and there's been a lot of, I guess, like, question marks about what this movie is going to be, and I could probably dive into like so many different details. I've watched a lot of breakdowns of the trailer. I'm that guy. I like to watch a lot of the detailed breakdowns, people picking apart all the details, the Easter eggs and all that stuff, because I know I like to find that stuff every once in a while. I can't sit here and say that I spent hours doing it, but I have definitely enjoyed being able to pick things apart and noticing details. And I know a lot of people did that with this Avengers trailer. And I mean, there's a lot of exciting things. If you haven't watched it and you're somewhat interested, go check it out. You'll know what I'm talking about if you haven't seen it already. It got like millions of views in the first 24 hours. No surprise. And honestly, I'm excited to go watch the trailer just like in a theater, just to kind of get, whenever you watch in a theater, you get a little bit of like a hint of what it's going to be when you watch it, in a live theater. So, but the other thing too, because I know we've been on a long journey here. I mentioned it on the podcast before that my girlfriend and I sat down and watched the entire MCU because she had not watched a lot of those films, at least not in completion or like in order of them being released. So we sat down, we binged the entire MCU pretty much up until Endgame. I think we only saw maybe a couple of other films here and there that came after Endgame. And I know we're going to have to we're probably going to do a marathon again because, I mean, why wouldn't you, right? We want to build the anticipation. And also one thing that's a funny story that is now going to be a critical watch for this movie is to watch Loki, the series. I've watched the full series, seasons 1 and 2, and I loved the show. And now it being a really critical part of understanding what's going to happen in Doomsday, I know that, we're going to have to make sure that we sit down and watch that with my girlfriend. We started watching the first few episodes together. I was rewatching it with her. And funny enough, we rewatched it on the plane on our way to a vacation last year. And then we just never picked it back up. And I'm kind of like, nah, damn, we definitely have to rewatch it. And plus, I'm excited to just watch it again. I love the show. So yeah, lots of cool tidbits, lots of crossovers in the trailer with all the different Marvel characters, some that we haven't even seen in the same movie or on the same screen before. So I'm really excited about that. The nerd in me is very excited to see what's going to come too, because as the release of this episode, San Diego Comic-Con is happening. And, that's another reason why I can't wait to have my brother-in-law on the show, because he's also a big comic book guy. Like I've been a fan of these movies and characters, but it's mainly been through film. I can't sit here and pretend like I was a comic book, aficionado and I had all this stuff put away. I've never really picked up a comic book other than maybe what was gifted to me or, just happenstance. But I've never been that person. And I never had like the deep knowledge. I always had to go and like research or watch other people talk about it so I could have a better understanding to appreciate the stories and the characters as all these movies were coming out. And my brother-in-law, Daniel, he's got a good track record of like knowing a lot of different comic stories and, with different versions of characters, when some of these comics came out, like what. So, I know even when he sees like a trailer or an announcement for like a new comic book movie, he kind of already has an idea of what they might pull from. And I know there's a lot of people out there like that. I'm just personally not one of them. I didn't grow up that way necessarily. But it kind of makes you wish you did, right? Because then you have this like level of background that it lets you in to a little bit more of like, I guess, another layer of being a fan. So I'll have to dive into some stuff with him for sure on that. But, either way, it's going to be a big weekend. I mean, San Diego Comic-Con is always a weekend where, all the different panels they have for all the upcoming films, it's mostly comic book based. There's sometimes slightly other projects that are being announced here and there, but for the most part, like the big studios like Marvel, DC, Lucasfilm, even sometimes other studios that are just releasing some really cool comic book things. Television as well is a big part of that, not just film but TV as well. And it's basically a huge ass convention. I mean, you've probably seen clips, people dress up in their costumes. And people they spend like a full year round schedule of them putting together these costumes that, it's just the creative minds people have to like, they're replicating, I guess, certain designs, but they still have to do it original from their own home. Like it's kind of intense, and it's pretty, you can't help but admire it. And, you have all these people that have all these different affinities for certain characters and movies and stories. So I would like to go one day. I think it'd be really dope. I hear that lines are crazy. People wait hours outside just to hopefully get a glimpse of something. But I hear just like kind of being in the room is dope too. Like just, it's a big ass, usually like from what I understand, like a convention center pretty much. So there's booths everywhere, and then there's like separate big conference rooms that are like the panels, or halls as they call them. Hall H is the really big one where like usually Marvel makes their big announcements or DC does, and that's where we've seen the announcements. For instance, talking about Avengers Doomsday, when it was first announced that Robert Downey Jr. would be coming back to the MCU and he'd be playing Doctor Doom. That was announced on the San Diego Comic-Con stage. So Marvel Studios is back this year. I don't believe they had a presentation at all last year. So obviously with a big movie coming out at the end of this year, that's going to be a really big presence for them. And just in general, usually, like, even if you're like, I know I follow a lot of the movie studios or, even a lot of the companies that go to these conventions, you'll start to see that announcements are being made, because then you start seeing on your feed all these different posts of like, oh, this project just got announced. They just released the title of this new movie coming out. We didn't know what it was going to be yet. They announced the casting for this film, or, because they always do that as well. They make lots of announcements that have not been made anywhere else. Like, it's the first that anyone's hearing of something. So really, really cool excitement that's built around. I mean, shit, I remember, gosh, and again, I'm gonna have to bring this up with Daniel some more, but I remember hearing announcements like when there was gonna be a Batman versus Superman movie, which nobody had seen before, at least not in my generation or even the generation past, probably. Or I remember when they announced, who was going to be playing Thanos in Avengers Infinity War, when Andrew Garfield was going to become Spider-Man, all these really cool nostalgic moments and like big moments, that are ingrained, and I'm sure a lot of comic book fans, and even just fans of the movies. Also, the funny thing is, because this trailer got released just this last Monday from this recording, that it's going to be the weekend after that trailer's release. So they're probably going to release more footage. People are probably going to try to leak it, because it always happens. And on top of that, just all the announcements that are going to be made about this movie. It's going to be, the marketing starting to kick in. So anyways, I could go on and on about that, but it's a really exciting weekend. I had totally forgotten about that. My girlfriend and I were just in Vegas this last weekend, and we didn't even realize, like, wow, there's a lot coming up. I mean, even just the fact that Spider-Man Brand New Day, we're just a week away now. Time's just moving, but it's okay. It's all good. What else is going on? I'm also very excited because, I mentioned before that, leading into this time of year, I mean, because look, if you live in Southern California, you already know, it's fucking hot outside. It's blazing hot outside, at least for us. And I mean, we were just in Vegas, and yeah, it's hot out there, but that's more of like the culture out there. You kind of expect it to be that. There's not really a way around it. So you almost go into it kind of knowing. Your mentality's kind of changed a little bit. We came back here and we're like, oh shit, it feels the same outside over here. I couldn't believe, like, we live, 3.5 hours outside of Vegas? We're Southern California. What are we doing? Why are we neighbors like that? Why are we neighbors that it feels like the same temperature is just a few feet away? It's crazy. But I am excited for it to cool down. I cannot wait to finally do that. But I also am excited because I was going through my closet the other day, and I remember that, well, first of all, a couple of years ago, I got some shoes made by a friend of mine, Jocelyn. I don't know if she watches or listens to the show, but she's actually one of the people, friends of mine, that got me really into the idea of doing a podcast and like gave me some tips, some reassurance. So shout out to you, Jocelyn, if you're listening. But she's also very artistic, and she's done a lot of really cool shit. I mean, she's done, graduation caps for people, but she's also, I personally, what I really was caught and captured by was she would do a lot of artwork on shoes. So when I saw that, I remember one year I was like, I got to get some fucking Halloween shoes. And I remember I was like messaging her like, hey, do you think that's possible? And she just right away was like, all right, what do you want to, like, as detailed as possible? What do you want to see on it? What colors are you looking for? What kind of shoe? I mean, typically, she does it like on Vans and stuff, shoes that are easy to draw. But anyway, she did that for me, and I thought it was really dope. And so I'll have to show you guys. I haven't put away somewhere, but I remember that I have those to pull out for spooky season. And I also have a jacket that I've been putting patches on. So I don't know what it was a couple years ago. I had this idea like putting up my own jacket together, getting patches of just Halloween stuff. And I think now it's becoming more of like just all my favorite characters and film and TV, characters, logos, all that stuff. But it's mainly Halloween stuff, and I can't wait to bring that back out. So I'll have to show you guys at some point. I'm sure I might even wear it on the podcast at some point. But yeah, lots of cool things to look forward to there. But again, more than anything, that it cools down. The other thing that I'm very excited for, just as we come towards the end of the year, is, I'm gonna be having more guests on here, of course, and I want to build the show out a little bit more. I'm actually looking, as much as I'm been comfortable here. This is our home. I shoot this podcast in my girlfriend and I's apartment. It's nice and cozy, but I definitely want to change in scenery. So soon to come, I'm gonna be probably relocating all of this stuff so I can have my own individual space to shoot this show, and I'll be able to kind of make amp up the environment a little bit, make it a little more comfortable for the guests that we have on as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. And put any suggestions in, especially again in the comments. Like, I'm gonna start having guests on. Throw in any questions that you think I should have. I'll probably put a poll up or a questionnaire on my Instagram too, so people can kind of start dropping in questions. But yeah, don't let it just come out of what I'm thinking. I want to know what you guys want to hear from the people that I have on, or just hear from me. You know me. I'll find a way to talk about it no matter what. So all right, well, might as well jump into the topic for this week, which this is actually a topic that came to mind weeks ago, and I knew it was something that I really wanted to talk about because there was a lot of layers to it. This is another one where I knew I wasn't going to be able to draw it back to just one movie or one TV show, but there's a lot of examples of it, and I've been rewatching. Like, I rewatched Jurassic Park after the legend Sam Neill had passed away. So I started watching some of those. I've been rewatching a lot of the Spider-Man films because, in anticipation for Spider-Man Brand New Day. And just, in general, like my girlfriend and I have been rewatching Ted Lasso and watching other movies that have popped up, and lots of great examples. So I was like, okay, cool. Lots to pick from. But this topic, well, I'll state it first so you kind of know what I'm talking about here. A lot of people use this term, and it usually has one connotation to it. It's just when people say, main character energy, like talking about people who either kind of like live in this reality where like they're the center of the world, and they walk around like, everything revolves around them. Or just the idea that like everybody walks around as if they're the main character, compared to everyone else around them. And maybe it's not always a negative connotation, but it is the connotation of like how you see yourself as the main character, right? Or how you present yourself as the main character, whether it's in your own story and everyone else's story. But this concept, for a few reasons, was really having me think one day, because, I've talked on here before about like, how you treat yourself, how you take care of yourself, things that you do to help evolve and grow as a human being. And then also, how you consider other people, how you take care of other people. And I feel like a topic like being quote unquote the main character, it a lot of it revolves around how you treat yourself versus how you treat others. And in my opinion, there have been a lot of people that I know that have used that term or that phrase as like a negative connotation towards somebody, like, they have main character energy. Like they think that, they think everything is about them. And, I mean, it's a good, I guess, like, phrase in terms of like how you refer to somebody. It's clever. But, I think I drew it back as I was thinking about it. I drew back, like, where did that term come from? Well, obviously, when you hear the word main character, you think about a movie, a TV show, even a video game, maybe. And that obviously there is one character that probably has the most importance or significance in that story, or that's who it's mainly about. And I think there is two sides to that coin. I really do. And I think both of them are very important to acknowledge. I think on the one hand, I think any of us, it is very important for us to a degree to treat ourselves like the main character. But I think the main approach you should have to that isn't so much so in terms of how you see yourself in comparison to everybody else. It's more like, how are you valuing yourself? You are the main character in your story. So make you your priority, whether that is, taking care of yourself, self-care, taking care of your mental, helping, prioritize your time for things that fulfill you, that make you happy, or that just take care of you, period. Even doing the things that maybe don't make you the most comfortable, but you got to do them to take care of yourself, whether it's medically, if it is for your mental health, or even if it's just taking a few minutes out every day, like, hey, do a self check-in. How you doing? Like, am I okay? Do I need something? Do I need to take a breath? Do I need to reevaluate something that I did today or that I've been doing? Any of that, and I think the value in that is not just so that you're taken care of. I think a lot of times when they always use that analogy or comparison of like to when you're on a plane, it's like you got to be able to put your own mask on first before you put it on someone else. Like it's the same concept. I mean, truly, genuinely, when you want to help other people, I do think that a lot of us maybe have the capacity to help other people, even if we're not the best at doing it with ourselves. But there is a threshold. There's a line that you're not going to be able to cross at some point, and you're going to reach that threshold and no longer be able to keep up with yourself or other people. And understandably, it's going to overwhelm you, and there's only so much you can do at that point. But to kind of reset, usually that's what it comes to, is if it catches up to you, and, in any kind of workload or volume, like if everything catches up to you in life, like eventually you have to just sit down, take a breath, and reset. That's going to be the only way you can bounce back and hopefully pick up some of the pieces. And eventually, it probably happened for a reason anyway, but you'll be able to kind of get back on track. And so, again, speaking on the theme of, you taking care of you, that's a good foundation to be able to sit on as well. I mean, there's a lot more of I guess a confidence that you probably would gain too, that the more you learn how to take care of yourself, you pass along this knowledge, and in your head, that you're not just talking out of your ass. You know what I mean? Like, that, I've lived that, or I've struggled with that. So now that I'm maybe giving advice to somebody, or I'm maybe helping somebody through something, and I'm kind of trying to push them in a certain direction, I'm not doing it just because I want to be able to brag and take credit for it. It's because, no, trust me, like, been there, done that. I'm passing this on, so maybe one less person has to do what I did, has to deal with what I did. So I think on the one hand, again, like, have main character energy for yourself in terms of how you care for yourself, because I think a lot of us too also forget how to take care of ourselves. I've talked on a few different episodes about, like, when you want to grow or evolve as a person, you're improving things, or you're working hard to maybe achieve something that you've set out as a personal goal. As you level up, things are changing about you, and if it's good change or bad change, but it is change, and there's a different version of you that starts to pop out, or like to show itself little by little. When that new version of yourself is there, sometimes taking care of that newer version of yourself isn't as easy, or isn't as familiar as you might have thought that it was going to be. And it's very important for you to be able to draw those things back and go, okay, well, I grew in X, Y, and Z. I grew in these areas. So now that I've grown, and maybe I'm a slightly better than what I was maybe previously, or I somewhat achieved what I was looking out to achieve. Now I feel like, okay, there's a new me that needs to kind of heal a little bit, or it needs to be taken care of, watched after. I mean, it's like any of us when we develop a new skill or a new habit. I think all of us understand that a habit or a skill can quickly turn into like an obsession, or something that we're doing a little too much to an extreme. And sometimes it's good to have a balance, and it's not always easy to find that balance, but finding that balance of how do we use that skill responsibly? How do we do it in a way that isn't too much on me or another person? And again, I've outweighed it with the other things in my life. And in doing that, that's a process. Part of that is, okay, what do I throw into the equation to say, yeah, how do I monitor myself? Not filter, but monitor myself in a way that allows me to, I'm able to do these things without straining myself, or without going too far that then I'm exhausted and I have nothing left. And even when, and as funny as it sounds, even when we feel like we're on autopilot, which I'll admit, even in the last couple of weeks, I've had a few moments where, like, I'm just cruising. I'm not necessarily like operating at this high functional level, at least not extrovertedly. But I'm also not like super, super low per se. It just feels like I'm just cruising. It's kind of like when you're driving and sometimes you don't realize that half an hour has gone by on the road and you're like, I don't even remember that drive really. Or like you get to somebody's house and then somebody asks you, oh, how was the drive? And then you kind of sit there and go, I don't remember driving really. A lot of it is a kind of a blank in my head. Even in those periods of our lives, there's still a lot going on, and there's sometimes even a lot of input that we're taking in. So it's good to keep in mind that as we grow and learn how to manage certain things, even if it is on autopilot, that we are still doing the other things. We're incorporating other elements to our day that allow us to be taken care of a little bit. And I've said this before too, and I'll never get tired of saying it, which is nobody is better equipped to take care of you than you. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, the other people around you, whether it's a partner, if it's a parent, a friend, whoever they might be, that takes care of you and does a very good job of doing so, part of the reason is probably because they've been around you long enough, so they've learned a lot about you, or because you've opened up to them. You've given them the space to understand who you are, what you're dealing with, what you're sensitive to, what you're really good at. Like, you know, you've opened a lot of that up, so they understand how to take care of you to a degree, probably more than the average person if they had just met you or they don't know you. You know, so in that sense, I feel like making yourself the main character is crucial. You know, because that's also how, you know, when you do have a certain level of confidence, or you do, you know, find it in you to want to, you know, set a goal for yourself, or even you know, just you want to feel productive today. You're not trying to do anything special or out of, you know, the ordinary. You're just trying to be productive. And maybe you haven't felt like that in a while. Once you start getting more confidence in some of those things, because you have taken care of yourself well enough, you get this rhythm going. That's the first thing. You get a rhythm going, and that becomes so contagious with all the things that you start applying yourself to do and to get done. But the other really cool thing about that is you've now learned more about what you truly want. You know, because a lot of times, I mean, I'm guilty of this. You get so stuck in your head and you get in your own way because you're worried about, you know, outside opinions and what other people are going to say if you do something. And so it kind of clouds your judgment a little bit. But when you gain a little more of that confidence and you feel like you're more taken care of, because also, look, when you take care of yourself, you recognize the idea that, oh, I took care of me. Like, that was me that did that. And I can be proud of that. So how do I now step away from that and I go, okay, yeah. Now I know what's next. Now I know the next thing for me is a car just took off. Now you know what you want more so for your future. You know, maybe you now know the job you have is not the job that you want anymore. Maybe you know that the relationship you're in maybe isn't healthy for you anymore. Or maybe you just know that, you know what, I spent a lot of time doing this random thing and I feel like it's not good for me anymore. I've developed this habit for some time now, and I kind of know that I've been wanting to give it up, but now I definitely want to give it up. You know, it's very empowering. And, you know, and then on top of that, the icing on the cake is that when you do set yourself up for success, you start, you know, taking leaps of faith into things that you've maybe wanted to do for a long time. When you achieve them, oh my gosh, the satisfaction is so much sweeter. It's like that meme from Leonardo DiCaprio in Wolf of Wall Street where he's just like, oh my God, and he bites his hand. Like, it's really satisfying. Like it I don't know. It's a different level of satisfaction, but also fulfillment because you've created that for yourself. Now, that's main character energy in terms of how you apply it to yourself, your day to day, or, you know, however you want it to look just in your own, you know, in your own bubble, in your own personal life. The other side to that coin is how it applies to others. Now, I don't want it to get confused that when I say that, it means that the way you treat yourself as an individual impacts others, so you need to base it off of that. No. At the end of the day, the way you treat yourself, the way you take care of yourself has to go off of what matters to you, what your values are, what you want your values to be, even if you haven't gotten all that figured out. But it's based off of what you truly want for yourself. It has to be. Otherwise, it's not genuine. But the other part of it is, you know, when people kind of do say, you know, this person has main character energy the way they're walking around, I think the responsibility we have in how we take care of ourselves, how we put ourselves out there for things, is that we don't allow it to consume us to the degree that now we're pushing other people out of the way, we're disregarding other people, we're seeing ourselves above other people, you know, or we're making a lot of time to belittle and talk badly on other people. Now, look, am I saying this from an experience that, oh man, I've always been a saint. I never said a bad word about anybody or anything, and I'm just, you know, I speak nice because that's just what I need to do. No, I think we're all very guilty of sometimes bad mouthing somebody or having something bad to say. And maybe sometimes it was justified. Somebody that hurt us, that did us wrong, somebody that was a stranger, but man, disrespected us in the heat of the moment, and it makes you want to say something back, or just makes you think really bad things about them. So nobody, again, that's a human thing. We can't really blame anybody for that. However, when it comes to what we choose to do in our life to try to find a certain level of achievement, success, or just to kind of grow ourselves, it can't be at the expense of other people, let alone their well-being. I think there's times where, yes, competition is a part of, a career search, or even trying to maybe win something that is going to help launch you into your next chapter, whatever the case. There's a lot of room for that, but it's how do you manage that? How do you handle that when it comes to other people? I'll give you a prime example. I've worked in corporate spaces for a few years, and especially in the entertainment industry. And, I've seen two kinds of people, really reach a very high level position and what they chose to do to get there. And don't get me wrong, there's one that's probably the easier way to get there. And that's doing the things under the table, saying the things you got to say, even if you don't believe them, because you're going on the script that's been given to you. You're following what people say that you should do, and that's going to get you to that place. And that probably means sometimes looking down on other people, treating other people a certain way that are below you rank wise in the industry or in that line of work, whatever it might be. And sometimes having to, be kind of political with the way you run your own career to make sure that it takes care of you. Now, to each their own. In my opinion, that lasts only but for so long, and it's only good for so many things. If you're just looking for money, well, look, that'll probably get you there. Can't deny you that. Will you sleep at night? I don't know. I can't promise you that. I know I couldn't. That's why, a lot of times I have this such passionate opinion about that, and then I met people who have reached that height in an industry that's very, high demand. It's very intense. Is they 100% don't apologize for who they are, but they're not assholes, for lack of a better word. They're just not afraid to be who they are, and that confidence gets them very far. And there are also people that didn't get it right the first time. They either fell into some of the traps of having to talk to certain people a certain way, or having to belittle, other people to hopefully attain a certain level of success, or even just the fact that, they tried the way that they finally made it, but a few other places, maybe it didn't work out. People didn't always give them a yes. They didn't always have this success right out the gate, and it took time, but they got to walk in to their success feeling like, well, I did this in a way that I was able to take care of myself, stay true to myself, and look at me now. I'm happy and at peace with the success that I have found. And let me tell you, those are some of the coolest people, because they don't even look at their success as what defines them. They look at it as a product of who they are. And man, let me tell you, the difference in those two, in terms of how people carry those two things, like with somebody that carries success, but that's really what they feel defines them as an individual, it's conditional. Because now, if let's say they get laid off tomorrow, that success now that was defining them, it's disappeared, and now they feel like they don't have much. And don't get me wrong, it's a very difficult thing to manage when life changes like that. But that's also why I feel that when people get into a certain level of success and they stay true to who they are, it really allows them to move through their life in a way that's like, look, I have what I have, and I'm very grateful for it. I take full advantage of it. I'm going to make the most of it. But I also know that if it changes one day, if things are going to be different, or something happens unexpectedly, that I can't do this job anymore, I can't live in this success anymore, I'll be just fine. Because what hasn't changed right here, the person that is in all of this, that's living all of this, hasn't changed. And there's such a beauty and grace to that you can't, it's untouchable. No, nobody can change that. Nobody can make that go away unless you choose to let that go away, or you choose to dismiss that and put it to the side. So that's a really cool, to me, that's a really cool a balance to have. And the reason I stress that so much, that idea of how you carry yourself, especially to a level of success, is that you'd be surprised sometimes. I mean, I'm a big believer in karma. So on the one hand, that sometimes when you choose to belittle other people or disregard other people, karma will find its way back to you, in my opinion. But the other funny thing about that is, you sometimes you run into people who you could tell even have created a habit of looking at certain people a certain way, whether it's because of how much money they make compared to this person, or maybe the kind of car they drive, where they live, how they're dressed, how they talk, whatever, how they look, whatever the whatever it might be. And it's so funny to me that looks can be deceiving. People always say, don't judge a book by its cover. Like you have to remember two things. One, you're not the only person that's ever been successful. So if you start to act like that, you better believe people are probably judging you. But also, more importantly, because it's not true and it's not the case, you have to understand that there's a lot of other people that have probably walked and moved the way you did. And yeah, they have success. Just observe from afar how many of them actually seem happy with their life. And I'm talking about the people that treat other people this way, that look down on people, and check to see how many of them actually look happy with the life that they have, that they're excited to go home, whoever they have at home, or that outside of their job, they feel like they really have a life that they're happy with, that they're proud of. And I'm willing to bet there's not many. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. And it brings me to a quote. Again, there's quite a few in this topic that I could draw from, but like this specific example, there's a moment in the first season of Ted Lasso. And again, he's a soccer, or in this case, football coach, to use the right European slang or term. He's a football coach, and he looks at the star player, and when he's meeting the team, he meets the star player, Jamie, who is a really good player, but he's also a dickhead. Like, he treats everybody like, oh, but I'm the best on the team, so you guys are just in my way. And he has this attitude, this snarky attitude. He can do what he wants. Nobody touches him. Like, he's invincible. And there's I don't know if it was after a game or something, that there's an episode where Ted pulls Jamie aside, and he recognizes that there's somewhat of a lesson to be learned there for Jamie, because he really thinks he's on top of the world and nobody can change that. Nobody's better than him on the team. But he doesn't like to pass the ball. He doesn't like to really engage much with the players or be friends with them. And Ted is trying to create this culture. So he finally pulls him aside and he goes, hey, listen, Jamie, I want you to know that, in all my years of coaching, you're probably the best athlete I've ever trained. And I haven't even known you that long, but I think you probably by far are the best athlete I've ever trained. And he goes, oh, well, thank you. Yeah, no, I work hard. And up until that point, Jamie had never really gotten like many compliments, because everybody just kind of either looks at him sideways or just kind of ignores him because they all think he's an asshole. So it was something different that he hadn't gotten from somebody before, at least not in that way. And then Ted tells him, he goes, oh, no, yeah. He goes, you're pretty good at everything except for one thing. And he goes, oh, my left foot cross? Like he's thinking technical. And then Ted goes, no. He goes, I'm so convinced that you think you're 1 in a million. I think you're so sure that you're 1 in a million that you forget that you're 1 of 11. I'm talking about the team. And it's recognizing that, yeah, a lot of people don't achieve their very best work alone, or that usually in life, whatever you're working on, it starts with you, but you're probably not the only one that helps contribute to that success. You have people that are encouraging you, supporting you, that maybe even do some of the work with you. And so it's recognizing that concept that you're never really truly alone in any success, achievement that you have, because there was always something or someone that helped along the way. And another thing that really rang true to me was in rewatching some of these Spider-Man movies. I know I personally resonate a lot with the character. Like, I've always loved Spider-Man because he was a young kid who was just trying to figure shit out, and he was always having a hard time trying to trying to keep up with everything. And then he gets these powers, and it's just like another added layer of responsibility because he's trying to live this double life, and it's very difficult. But, I was rewatching a couple of the Spider-Verse movies, and, there's quite a few moments where Miles, the main character, Miles Morales, he's 14, 15 years old at one point, and he is, he's getting a little more of a confidence in being Spider-Man. It was an accident that he became Spider-Man in the first place. And, he starts to realize that, like, there are a lot of other people out there like him in different universes. And that's kind of what the movie's about, right? But a really cool moment is he goes through a lot of, like, if you've seen all the Spider-Man movies, he goes through some of the same stuff. People not knowing what his real identity is, who he is, that he lives this double life. But that people around him are constantly checking in on him. And even though they don't know what he's up to, that Miles is actually Spider-Man, like his parents or a couple like of people that know him, outside of just being Spider-Man, like they check on him and they support him in the ways that maybe he doesn't even realize are actually helping him to continue being who he wants to be, which is Spider-Man. He wants to find success and really live out this life of saving people, doing good, and embracing that side of him. And when it comes to finding the balance between taking care of yourself, being the main character, but also knowing how it impacts other people and how that, how you choose to carry yourself, how it does actually, really affect more than just yourself. It's one of those balances that is very difficult to find, but it's also, it feels like a superpower in a way, because now you have found an ability to be the best version of yourself. And literally all it costs you is what's already at your disposal, not having to make time to, carry yourself a certain way in front of certain people or use energy on how to have this false confidence to put other people down just to make yourself feel good, when in actuality, you're just putting in more effort to be somebody that you're not, and maybe that's not a popular opinion, but to be honest with you, I feel like a lot of people, they learn it, even if they choose to be that way, they learn it along the way that it's not always going to guarantee you a solid foundation, and I think a lot even about, whenever you run into like a midlife crisis or like something drastic really happens in your life, it's almost like a lot of your life, no matter how successful, no matter all the nice shiny things you might have, or even if it's something simple that you worked really hard for, that it's a success of yours, whatever success means to you, when something tragic happens, like you lose a loved one, or you get into a bad car accident, God forbid, or you get laid off from a job, any of these things that could change the course of your life, all that other shit gets quiet and it freezes in time. I feel like that's like an indirect way of like life telling you, hey, those were not the things that mattered the most. They're important. You worked hard for them, and they're worth acknowledging. But in moments like this, your mentality changes. Your focuses, where your focuses are. Where your focus is, I don't think I'm saying that right, but wherever your focus goes, that starts to really show you what really matters to you in that moment. And that can fluctuate, that can change as you grow and we all evolve. Like, we all know that our priorities change, our values change, or at least they can. And it can reflect itself in moments like that. And, I even think about, like, this is another, like, funny / like silly example, but I think about like when you're in a car, right? You're driving, and let's say you had a really shitty day, and you're driving, and all you want to do is just yell or scream, or maybe even just cry. Like, you need a good cry while you're in the car. And a lot of times our car is our safe space, right? Like, I know, look, I'm a commuter myself, so I'm in the car a lot. So there's a lot of times where if I'm angry, I need to let something out. A car is a really safe space to do that, because also most of the time you're alone. And you do in that moment. If you think about any time that maybe you've cried in the car, or like you started, you had road rage, you were yelling in the car, or like you were just going through it. I guarantee you that when you were in the heat of that emotion or whatever it was, you weren't thinking about all the other people in the other cars around you looking in through their window like, what's that person doing? There's a good chance that you didn't even think about that. And it's kind of a weird example, but it does show both sides of that coin. On the one hand, you're kind of prioritizing you in that moment. You are, because you're trying to give yourself time and space to have that, because you probably need it. But at the same time, it's like, hey, you're still driving though. You got to be careful, like if you're crying, you're going to have a hard time seeing. If you're getting angry and you're kind of looking around everywhere, like you might lose focus to what's going on, and it does impact other people. Sometimes you do have to kind of like check yourself in the midst of that, because otherwise you'll get into some crazy ass accident, right? So you realize how it might affect other people. Also, you might have considered, you know what, I'm going to do this in the car on the ride home because I'll be alone and it's the only time I'm alone, and I don't want it to rub off on anyone else. I don't want anyone else to see me. Even if it's out of like shame or embarrassment, there you are taking care of yourself, but also being mindful of others and how it might impact them. And see, I feel like things like that we naturally do go to show that there is a lot more good in us sometimes than we realize, or at least that we're capable of. And to me, again, that is the beauty of finding this balance, taking care of yourself, but not putting yourself necessarily above other people. And look, all of us as individuals, we're always going to be better at something compared to someone else, but there's also going to be a lot of other people that are better than us at something, if that makes sense. And that's always going to be the case. That is a natural law, no doubt about it. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. I feel like, again, that balance helps us all feel like, you know what, if we fail at something, if we're maybe not as good at something that we wish we were better at, it's not something to be totally ashamed of. Is it difficult to live with sometimes? Yeah. I mean, it's gonna piss you off sometimes, probably, or it's gonna really bring you down. And who can blame you for that? But at the same time, there has to be some level of comfort that we all try to find once in a while, knowing that everybody finds that. They might not always show it. And look, social media don't help with that. That, people always want, like, and again, we're all guilty of that. We want to try to put our best version of ourselves out there. We don't want people to see us when we're most vulnerable, when we're at our weakest or lowest. And I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think it also, with social media, it being so accessible and so easy to find, it makes it very easy to think and portray, a lot of people's lives as though there's nothing wrong, and it can cause us to aim for things blindly, to think that that's what we want to achieve. And we don't know what people are dealing with in their personal lives. And I think that's kind of the other cool theme about main character energy is that if you think about any movie you've watched and you think about the main character in a movie that, let's say, think about the movie you love the most and you think about the main character in that movie, probably a good chance that main character is in the movie the most compared to any other character. You see them the most on screen, and they go through maybe some certain conflicts or challenges in their life, and maybe a good amount of the time they come out on top. They're able to overcome, they're able to achieve the goal, whatever it was, but you don't see every second of that character's life, right? I think a job of like a director or a screenwriter or whatever it is when they're putting a show or a movie together, they want you to catch at least the gist of who this character is, in their good moments and their bad moments and everything in between. But you don't capture everything, right? And even though a movie's designed to show you that, you still don't get everything. And you realize that a lot of times what allows a character to make it far in their journey is probably a good amount of the time, like at least 70-80% of the time, they recognize that they're not alone, that maybe other people have done this before, gone through this before. Other people have faith in me overcoming this situation. And you know what? It's going to be okay. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be okay. And I love that concept because I feel like that's how we got to treat ourselves. There's no one else probably in the world that's going to be with us every single second of the day and know what we think, what we feel at any given time of the day. There are some people, whether it's a partner, a family member, a friend, whoever it might be, that has a pretty good chance or has the closest idea of that, but they're still not going to know everything. Only you do. But the ironic thing is that a lot of us share a lot of these individual moments. We all share them. We all have them. We just don't address them or get to talk about them all the time because maybe they are the weaker or more vulnerable version of ourselves that we don't want a lot of people to see. And that can be very heavy to carry sometimes. So it's at least worth to find out, how can I take care of myself? So maybe I don't carry so much of it, or it doesn't feel so heavy, or that when I am alone in those moments and that I can feel alone sometimes, you know what? At least I know that I'm putting in effort to take care of myself. And if I can do better, then yeah, I'll work to do better. But it takes time. But I know that the one thing I'm not doing is putting other people down or dismissing other people because maybe they're not on the same journey as me, or maybe they're not at the same part in their life as me, or they're just different. There's no need to. At the end of the day, I got to take care of me first and foremost. Because if I'm ever even going to have any sort of good judgment to place on anyone else, how could I possibly do that if I haven't looked out for me yet? If I haven't figured that out for myself yet? So, I think it's important for all of us to keep that in mind and to put in the effort, because why not? We never know when our last day is going to be. And if we do have some time left, quite a bit of time left on earth, hey, make the most of it. Take care of you, freshen yourself up. It's like watering a plant. The more you're intentional about it, that longer that plant's going to be around, and the more it's going to blossom, it's going to grow. And the more you neglect it, it starts to show eventually, maybe not right away, but it'll show eventually. And that's when it becomes a little bit more difficult to take care of. So right now, if you have the opportunity to do something for yourself, to take care of yourself, to maybe instill something that's going to help you, don't waste the opportunity. Do it. Doesn't mean it's going to be something that's, at like a flick of a switch, but doesn't mean it's going to be any less worth it. You might as well. So I hope that this was a very interesting message. I know I kind of went a little bit all over the place, but I think that was kind of the whole point in a way too, as I thought about this theme. Like, I just always heard this term, main character energy, and I felt like there were so many layers to that as in terms of how we can apply it to our day-to-day life. And and that continues to change. It continues to evolve with any of us, whatever we choose to do with ourselves, whatever we choose to do next in our life. It can always still mean something though. So make it mean something. That's up to you. All right. Well, I think that is it for me today, you guys. I'm very appreciative once again of every single one of you who are choosing to make the time to listen, to tune in. Again, be ready for next episode. I am so excited to have Daniel on, my brother-in-law. We're going to talk a lot of great things, personal, motivational, comic book movies, what to expect in this next Spider-Man movie. It's going to be, even some questions, Q&A, rapid fire, all that stuff and more. It'll be a great time. And like I said, put in the comments, drop in my social media, drop it on Instagram in my comments or DMs. What do you want to hear us talk about? What do you want to hear us answer? No topic is necessarily off limits, so throw it in there. Please feel free. And otherwise, I appreciate every single one of you, all of you. Someone loves you. Someone wishes for you to do well. And even if you don't know who that is, make sure you are one of those people. So I love y'all. Take care. Stay safe. And I'll talk to you on the next episode.